up, everybody? I'm Brandon Carney alongside Pat Gustafson, and welcome back to Off the Bench. First order of business, you guys need to tell me if I'm too fucking loud. We are trying to figure out all sorts of audio and video issues here in the new location that I'm in. I think I may have figured out some of the robotic issues that we had from last week, but as far as loudness, no clue. Is there anything? Let's see.
Yeah, you guys should have.
He said this guy says the audio's not good. It seems like, so I may have to make an adjustment.
You're
here.
still very loud and peaking a bit. Mike is a little goofy, man. You're getting fucking cooked.
I mean, I'm not gonna do this if the mic's gonna be terrible. Let me see here.
You already sound better.
I already sound okay. I'm turning it down.
You still sound like the mic. Yeah, you don't sound as good as you do.
As good as I do normally. All right, you know what? Let's I'll just hook up my other mic real quick.
We're gonna change mics. Is it my time to riff?
Yeah, no, I mean I'm right here, so you don't have to riff. It's just we're kind of filling for the live crowd here for a second, but
sure, yeah, filling for the live crowd. Well, the live crowd is here. I will tell you all, for those of you watching, and you prefer to listen to us, so you can catch us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're on all major podcast platforms. The links are on our channel, and if you're listening on Spotify, Apple, you can catch us on our YouTube channel, Off the Bench with Benchwarmer Bran. We stream once a week, typically 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Tuesdays. So, gotta give the spiel for the people there.
This is great advice. It would
can Pat carry? I don't know.
This is great advice. If only I knew where the wire was that actually goes
I'm on
into
the radio.
My other mic. I'm like, what did I possibly use that for? That it
sounds like toll booth audio, man. We're getting.
Okay, is it downstairs? Can you grab it for me?
Sounds like the pilot talking to a passenger. All right, everyone, we're about 300 feet from Denver here. We're gonna make a quick stop.
It's fine. This will be one of those shows that I'll either re-upload to YouTube later, or it'll just be hilarious.
You're gonna have to redo the whole. You're gonna have to redo the whole thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna obviously get the audio fixed here, but I'm saying, do I leave in all of our issues right now? Thank you.
You're breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah, the fourth wall. Okay, so we've got this. Let's see if we can fix our audio here live on air. All right, we've got that. Let's plug it in to the old mic and ditch the new mic. Yeah,
this is approaching 30,000. Big chance for me here to make a name for myself here. I may not have hundreds of thousands of internet followers, but I know someone who does, and that's why I'm here. You played Mostert. I'm basically just going to read the chat and talk to the chat. You played Mostert last week and won. I have a team that has Cooper Kupp, Aaron Jones, Brandon Ayuk, and Jalen Waddle, and I won thanks to Raheem Mostert. So, sometimes the big games giveth, and sometimes they taketh away. But yeah, we got the heavy artillery coming out here from Benchwarmer. This chat is fucking hysterical. 3, 2,
Folks,
1.
how do we sound? Are we too quiet?
You're really quiet now.
Okay, I can turn this up. That's not a problem.
Oh, there you go. You're sounding better already, and you don't
right.
sound like a fucking airline pilot.
Okay, it's at 98 volume now, guys. How's the quality? 2, does it sound equal to Pat? That's what we're looking for.
Yeah,
here.
you at least from what I'm hearing, it sounds very good.
Way better. Okay, is it like equal volume? I think the setting I normally have it at anyway. We're good. Okay.
Everyone,
This
way better. Here we go.
Makes sense. I just went back to the mic that I always use. I was using the mic that's on top of my camera initially, which is normally, I mean, that's what I use for my videos, so it's good audio. But I mean, I don't fucking know.
This is payback for the second one like we ever did when I used my AirPod mics, and it sounded like I was literally underwater.
Okay, it's slightly louder. I'll turn it down like a little bit, but okay, this should be good. All right, guys. What's up? Welcome to the podcast. Actually, now that we've got our audio issues figured out, I should just play some elevator music or something to transition from, technical difficulties, but we are here. Okay, let's get into the actual football content, Pat. Big week for really everybody. There were some weird fucking games going on, mainly the Dolphins and is the camera lagging? That's probably, that's hopefully that's just you. I don't know. But there were some weird games, some weird results. Look, the Broncos let 70 points get hung on them by the Miami Dolphins. The Cowboys lost to the Arizona Cardinals, which probably just murdered survivor pools far and wide.
Oh, what a brutal week for survivor pools. Jacksonville, Baltimore,
Dude,
just brutal.
It's why I
We're
don't.
ripping them, I guess.
Yeah, it's true. It's why I don't like survivor pools. I don't really play them because like I just these games that feel like locks. It's like, eventually you're gonna have to pick a game that's actually a tough matchup. But then you assume that weeks like this, you're gonna get away with it. You're gonna just pick the Cowboys. Okay, I burned my Cowboys pick for the year, and it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be no. Then they lose. It's like, fuck this. I don't know what the fuck I'm supposed to do in this case.
Yeah,
so
I'm not a big eliminator guy myself. So like,
yeah, it's just it's not for me. So is what it is. But Pat, the biggest news of the week by far. Did you know Travis Kelce's dating Taylor Swift?
I'm sorry, who?
Did you know? I haven't. I don't think this has been publicized enough yet. Did you know that this
hang on
happened?
a second, Taylor Swift.
You have to Google Taylor Swift. Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you. She's a small-time indie artist. Only a few people have probably ever heard of her. So honestly, it's very nice of Travis Kelce to give her this kind of platform, put her in the suite and all that, because it's just opening her up to a whole new audience, and she needs as much fanfare as she can get. She certainly doesn't have enough.
Yeah, folks, I think this is probably a safe space for me right now, at least now during the stream, because I doubt we have a ton of Swifties here. But like, I'm just confused because like I was talking to a friend today. A female, yes, I speak to women. Shocker of the century. And I was like talking about like the Taylor Swift songs I like. And apparently they're just like almost 15 years old. Like, I was talking about like Love Story and You Belong to Me. They're like, that's so old.
Yeah.
And I don't listen to modern music, so I'm just so out of touch. But like,
Sure.
I don't get when and how she became literally the most famous person in the world. I'm not saying she doesn't deserve it. I'm just confused because like she went from a popular crossover artist, pretty talented, to having concerts that literally shut down the state of Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how we got from A to B, but it's bringing a lot of new exposure to the game of football. I had a friend asking me the basics of football. And it made me just want to run. I guess we take for granted how naturally this comes to us, where the terms first down, uprights, thing like that. Those come pretty naturally to us. Some people it doesn't, but greater audience for football. Some of the Swiftie content and some of the Swiftie memes on Twitter have already just been phenomenal. Like, I think at the end of the day, this is a net positive for everyone involved.
Oh, I mean, the NFL is absolutely loving this right now. Like they are, as popular as their league and sport remains, like they are always trying to get more people watching, and they always feel like it's not enough. Like, to be able to get exposed to Taylor Swift's gigantic fan base is massive for them. Like they're updating their like TikTok bio and saying Taylor was here and all this stuff. I'll say this, as long as their relationship goes well, this is great. As soon as it goes down the tubes, the NFL's fucked, because the Swifties may just burn down every football stadium.
The whole league will be canceled.
Travis Kelce's going to need a full-on security detail. He's going to need Chris Jones to just be by him all the time, including some armed guards.
She's going to release an album called Big Stinky Doo-Doo Head NFL Player Taylor's version, and that thing's going to fucking go platinum.
I've already seen so many people like parodying what the breakup song is going to be, and it's like, oh, he threw me a pass and I missed, or some bullshit like that. Like, it's great. It's great content. I will say I'm already kind of tired of seeing them together, though. The constant cuts to her in the suite were brutal. They just happen so much, but I don't know. I'm hoping that this is. I'm ignorantly hoping that this is just because it's the beginning and it's new, so they're gonna keep talking about it. But in reality, it's gonna keep on.
Now, here's the thing: is like, if you could pick any player in the NFL for the most famous person in the world to be dating, who would it be? I would pick someone a lot funnier.
Yeah, I mean, like somebody that matches her star power would be, Kelsey's teammate, Patrick Mahomes, or somebody like that. But if just for the shits and giggles of me to pick anybody to be dating her, oh God,
is Dan Arnold still in the NFL?
I believe so.
I'd like her to date Dan Arnold.
Dan Arnold, the tight end, that's a very Kim Kardashian,
he's a free
Chris
agent.
Humphries
Nope.
type of couple.
Gotta pick somebody else.
you're looking for the Kim K, Chris Humphries type of couple, where it's like the celebrity woman is just far surpassing the fame of the NFL player.
It's like when Vanessa Hudgens was dating Cole Tucker, the baseball player,
Oh my
who's
God,
actually
yeah.
still circulating in the MLB this year. Guy's been in the MLB a little bit. Like, you want the equivalent to that. Like, I saw a tweet where it was like, could you imagine Swifties on here breaking down film of Daniel Sorensen? You know, just the most ridiculous, boring player.
I saw
the
the clip of if you remember Cooper Kupp like post game interview where he is just breaking down what happened in the most like complicated football terminology ever. It was like, this is Swifties after researching football for 10 hours.
And it was
knowing that
Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, it was Cooper Kupp just rattling off all the shit that confused even me. But all right, let's move on from Taylor Swift, Pat. We've got some stuff to react to here.
No. This is how we get all the views.
Off the bench. Taylor Swift, off the bench, Taylor's version. Yeah, that's what we're dealing with here.
That's a good episode title.
Let's get into some actual game stuff. Again, we touched on it here real quick, Pat. I think the appropriate and necessary game to lead off with here is just the Miami Dolphins. I think the term video game numbers gets thrown around a little too often. This was video game numbers.
Actual video game numbers.
This was an NFL team in the Denver Broncos giving up more points than you will see in your average college basketball game. Like, that is what the Miami Dolphins just put up on them. Like, it was astounding to see just... It was like 8.4 yards per carry for both the running backs, which is a type of number that you see for a guy who gets maybe a couple of carries in a game. They ran the ball upwards of 40 times and averaged 8.4 yards per carry. Like, I don't know how you allow that to happen as a franchise. Everything needs to be reevaluated, but we are here to look at things from a fantasy perspective, Pat, and I cannot say if you guys have been listening to this pod for the past few weeks, you know that I am a big proponent and manager of Raheem must start Mostert. And this man backpacked me this week. Like,
I was
absolutely carried.
During your microphone dash, I was saying about how, like, I've got a league where I've got, like, Aaron Jones, Ayuk, Cooper Kupp, and Jalen Waddle, and I won. And I still dropped like 140 full PPR, and it was all because of Raheem Mostert. Like, in the thing too is, like, I was thinking at the beginning of the game, I was like already imagining our segment being called like Raheem Don't Start, with seeing Devin A. Chan, by the way.
Devon A. Chan. We got a whole
email at work about how he would like his name to be pronounced for future stuff. It was all him. At the beginning, it's like, is this already done? Is Mostert already going to get phased out like we thought? We talked about last week, like it's a ticking time bomb. And I'm like, I didn't think this thing was going to blow up this week. And then all of a sudden, the guy's just out there ripping off touchdowns. And, it makes sense. No Jalen Waddle. And after Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, they don't really have any other targets. Like Braxton Berrios.
Durham Smythe, baby.
Cedric Wilson played this week. But it makes sense naturally that it was all Tyreek and then all the running backs. And it just goes to show that, like, they don't need this huge cast of characters. They only need their guys. But I don't know if there has been a more of a spend every ounce of your fab money on a guy like Devon A. Chan.
No, the Miami Dolphins offense is just a 4x4 relay team. It's fascinating. They are just like, we want the guys that have all the zoomies in the world. But no, you're right. Like, I was very worried at the start of that game. I was actually traveling home, so I was like going through airport security when that game was sort of starting, and I saw just A-Chan, excuse me, this is going to take a while, scoring just a ton and getting all these carries, and I'm texting my buddy Gary. I'm like, Raheem Mostert's apparently just the backup running back now. 4 touchdowns later, I have a different tune, but this backfield just ungodly numbers. And Pat, I think what we have to do though is look past those numbers, because obviously the Miami Dolphins are not going to put up 70 points every week. So this sort of touchdown equity and these potential yards and points, they're not going to be the same every week. They're not even going to be half of this most weeks, not even going to be a third of this most weeks. So how do we evaluate this going forward? The way I look at it is, yes, I think you're right. Blow all the fab money on Devon A. Chan if you can, because he is a good player who is, after this performance, going to have a good opportunity on arguably the best offense in the NFL. But I think
arguably.
it's honestly not arguable right now. But there's a question of what this looks like when Jeff Wilson comes back. I think right now you've got an offense that's so efficient that worrying about starting Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane is not a concern. I mean, they're both going to be great. They're both going to be at the very worst probably RB2s most weeks because of the efficiency. I mean, even when the Dolphins are putting up normal point totals like, in the 20s, there's still going to be enough to go around for these two guys, I think. When Jeff Wilson comes back, it gets interesting. It used to be pretty clear cut. It was like, okay, Raheem Mostert's getting a lot of work right now and it's unsustainable. And so when Wilson comes back, he'll take some and blah, blah, blah. Now you've got, there is not a team in the NFL that consistently works in 3 running backs, like to where they're each getting, say, 8+ touches in a game. It doesn't happen. Yeah. So how is this going to work? This could potentially just get answered, Pat, by Jeff Wilson not coming back in a timely manner. Again, we have to bring back Mike McDaniels' comments when he first went down, which was it would not be a surprise if we saw him again this season, which if you hear it on the surface sounds like a positive, but if you look past it, it's like, okay, I didn't realize him being out for the season was remotely on the table. So maybe he's not, a guy that comes back week 5. Maybe he's a guy that misses half the season. Maybe he's a guy that misses the whole season, and this isn't a question. But right now, all you can do is go off the information we have. And what we know is the Dolphins are elite. Their rushing offense is also elite. And you want both or either of Raheem Mostert or Devon Achane. That's it.
If I have either of those guys, I'm starting them until you can't, until, if things start to shift. But it's clear that Mike McDaniel doesn't like to lean on one guy, and usually that spells doom for fantasy running backs.
Right.
But it's clear in this situation that, it's not, and they're not terribly different running backs. The only difference really is that Mostert does not have a ton of pass catching. He's never really been a terrific pass catcher as opposed to Achane. I feel like that's where Achane's really going to make his mark, especially PPR. Like, if you're a non-PPR, I'd be a little more hesitant about starting Achane each week. I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to start him this coming week, but I just think that might be the one downside. Jeff Wilson, assuming he comes back, is just going to vulture touchdowns, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be annoying for both guys.
Again, it's nice to have, from a real football perspective, to have a guy who is great in short yardage situations. We know that. And, I mean, before he got hurt, that was kind of the expectation, was that Mostert would be, kind of the early down guy, and that Wilson would get the short yardage situations. And then, obviously, that just didn't happen, and we thought it was all Mostert. But I'm really upset with myself because, it's week 3. You got to take some victory laps week 3. I've got 2 huge victory laps I'm already taking. Mm-hmm. And one of them was just the Dolphins. One of the first podcasts I did here was saying that the Dolphins, Tua, sleeper draft, Pat's pal. Yeah. And I didn't draft the motherfucker. I drafted Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Who has been the definition of mid.
Yeah.
So frustrating. From a real-life football perspective, watching that team is so frustrating because they should be so much better. And then just from a fantasy perspective, because, I was like, I'll take Tua late. It'll be great. But Lawrence fell to, the 8-9 turn in our league, I believe.
Yep.
And I'm like, ugh. I didn't really think about Lawrence because it's like, I'm not going to get him. He's not going to. And he was there. I'm like, oh, wow. I'm going to get Trevor Lawrence. This is great. And especially the fact that I could have waited till the next turn to get Tua anyway. So, I've got to stick to my guns sometimes. But, I'll still take the victory lap that I'm right. I've still got Tua in a couple leagues. But if you're a Tyreek Hill owner, if you're a Tua owner, you're going to be a winner. You're going to be winning. They're going to help you win a lot of games. He helped me win. Speaking, you mentioned Gary earlier. Did Gary win this week? I can't recall. The only reason he didn't was because of Tyreek Hill, because my team is ass otherwise. But yeah, and again, I think it helps so much that this is very condensed. It's Tyreek Hill, it's Jalen Waddle, and then it's the running backs. Yep. And there's a lot of it, and there's still a lot of it to go around. So you are confidently starting any of these 4 people until it's shown that you can't do that.
Yeah, I hate it because I want a victory lap Achane, and I will a little because I've talked him up quite a bit on this podcast, but I'm upset that I didn't get him in our league. I didn't really have a chance to get him, Pat, because our boy Brett took him so fucking early. He took him ungodly early based on where his ADP was, so I wasn't even thinking about him at that point.
He already knew.
Yeah, he already knew. So Yeah, it is what it is, but if you can get this guy, get him. He's going to be good here in the near future and potentially for the long haul. It's not very often that you can get running backs on waivers who are potentially legitimately game-breaking talents. Most of the time you are dealing with guys like Zach Moss, Jerome Ford, who are going to be productive in their own right because of their role. It's different when you can get a guy who may actually be a really good football player as well, and that's what Devon Achane is.
And we talked about Raheem Mostert's injury history too. Like, if Mostert gets hurt,
yeah,
good Lord. Because, like, what are you going to supplant him with Savon Ahmed? Probably not. But, again, it would just be Jeff Wilson. But say it was Devon Achane and Jeff Wilson, I'm not worried about Devon Achane. I'm only worried if it's a 3-horse race in that backfield.
Right.
So, if the ticking time bomb in Mostert does go out, is there a more of a sell high player than Raheem Mostert right now? I don't think there is.
No, I'm trying very hard, Pat, and it's not easy to try and get people to look past.
You could have had Puka last week if you.
I know. It's just like Mostert, especially for me, like I do not have a third running back. My third running back right now is Zach Evans, who was inactive. I'll talk about Zach Evans a little later, actually. Don't ask why, you'll understand. But like I don't have a startable, usable running back right now if he were to get hurt. And odds say at some point that's going to happen. So no, there's not a more sell-high player. You are definitely enjoying this ride with Raheem Mostert, but you feel free to jump off at any time as long as you get pretty solid value in return, because he is still in RB1 for as long as he's healthy.
Well, that's the
but
thing,
trying to project how long that is tough.
You can just use the fact. Look at the numbers. He is the RB1.
Yeah.
Even without the huge week this week, like he was up there. He was in the top.
He was
10.
RB6 coming into the
top
week.
10 running backs last week, and he was there.
Yeah.
So he's been really, really good. But it's just hard to be confident that you're going to get that the rest of the year. Like you said, he'll be solid as long as he's healthy. But if you haven't needed another position, if you need a wide receiver, you need a quarterback even, and you've got the running back depth to do it, which doubtful. It's hard to get that kind of running back depth. But if you can do it, ship Mostert off if you can.
Definitely do it. Pat, one guy who is pretty hard to ship off these days is Joe Burrow. So the Bengals played on Monday Night Football. Joe Burrow was a bit of a surprise that he was active for this game. It seemed like things were not trending super well, but he did end up playing, and he did not play very well. Pretty much leaned on short passes the entire game. I mean, hit Jamar Chase deep a little bit here and there, but it was mostly just dink and dunk short passes. And here's what Joe Burrow said after the game. A couple of quotes here that I thought were super interesting and telling about his outlook going forward. He said, "There's a risk to go out there and potentially re-injure it, but there's also a risk to go out there and be 0-3. So he has that quote, and then he said, "We got through it." Neither of these things inspire much confidence, because the fact that he is saying, there is a risk to go out there and re-injure it, and he's really only doing it because of the fact that they were facing going 0-3. Pat, this is as dangerous of a player as you can own right now, because he's clearly not 100%. It's going to be difficult to get back to 100% without any level of rest. But the way this injury sounds is like he can't make it. I don't want to say he can't make it worse by playing, because obviously he could re-aggravate it. But I guess looking at what he's going to have to do in the offseason in terms of getting a full amount of rest or getting a procedure of some kind, I don't know what that would entail. There's not much he can do to improve it during this season. So he's just going to be playing at a portion of himself every week and not getting the rest to be able to get back to the Joe Burrow that we know and that we love. I think you're in a really tough spot as a Joe Burrow owner, because I don't think we're going to see elite Joe Burrow this season. And maybe I'll eat my words, and I'm sure we'll see flashes of it, because good quarterbacks will just have good matchups, and even if he's not his full self, he could put up big numbers occasionally. But I don't think you're going to get a very good investment on this draft pick.
Yeah. And and obviously it's going to affect the people around him. Like there was a play early in the game where like Jamar Chase had a nice first down catch, and they go, that's his longest reception of the season at 13 yards. And I was just like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, it feels like he has 13 yards per game over the first couple of weeks.
Like we're talking about, like this, at worst, the third best wide receiver in the game, and just an electric player. Dude can't get a double-digit yard reception? Mm-hmm. Like, excuse me? And it's just really surprising to see. And T. Higgins, man, figure it out. Like, there was a great meme. I love the Gordon Ramsay meme where it's like T. Higgins drops a ball and it's like, oh dear, gorgeous. And it's like Kadarius Toney drive ball. It's like, you fucking donkey. And then people are like, and I saw a comment where it's like, T. Higgins has got the benefit of the doubt. And it goes, you're doing the meme right now. Like, you're doing the meme right now. He was brutal last night. And if you have Joe Burrow, I'm at the point where seek alternative options.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if you were lucky enough at the beginning of the year to be able to pick up, I mean, obviously Matthew Stafford looked very bad last night, but if you were able to get a guy like Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, even Jared Goff, Geno Smith, things like that, play them.
Yeah.
But I would play them over Joe Burrow, again, until we see that he can kind of get back to that higher level stuff, because his ceiling is so capped. And obviously, another thing that made Burrow appealing was that he can run a bit. Obviously not like a running quarterback, but very mobile, very good near the goal line, especially. That is gone. That is gone. And so his upside is so capped, and we know his floor. His floor is not playing. So if you can, at least, it's very hard. You know, I look at, the waiver wires for quarterbacks in my leagues, and there's not much good out there. Like, there's not a whole lot you want out there. So you're in a tough situation, and especially considering you probably used a 5th or 6th round draft pick on this guy. And,
at worst.
But, yeah, again, I'd argue that, well, yeah, he's the biggest panic player in the league right now. Like, out of every single player in the league, granted, except injured guys like Cooper Kupp or whatever. But
Sure, yeah.
Out of guys that have been on the field, there is no one that I would be panicking more than Joe Burrow. And I'm very relieved that I own 0 Joe Burrow.
I am as well. No, the path to continue sucking for Joe Burrow is much clearer than the path for him to become that top 5 or so quarterback that you were banking on him being when you drafted him. I assume that the week to week, it sounds like he's going to keep playing until he re-injures it. Like, that's basically where he's at mentally. And if that's the case, like, he's not going to have time for that to get better, and it's only going to get worse. Look, maybe we'll be wrong, and maybe it will just gradually get better over the weeks, and actually playing the games won't just, reset him back to 0 after the semi-recovery that he gets on off days and stuff like that. But you're not feeling good about Joe Burrow, and I think that may be a little bit optimistic of a view. Pat, I moved this up in our sheet a little bit because I think it's just a smooth transition. If we're talking about disappointing and bad quarterbacks, one that I have a lot of investment in, and by that I mean it's in one league, but the one I care about, Justin Fields. We are now at week 3. Things have only gotten worse as the season has gone along for Justin Fields. He is,
at least right now, he's bad.
He's bad. He's not seeing defenses well. He's not running the ball. It is really rough out there for Justin Fields, and I am at a point, as you mentioned with Joe Burrow, where you're looking for other options. You should be. I'm not saying you drop Justin Fields or anything like that. I mean, part of the reason I drafted him was that upside that we saw at the end of last year, where he's dropping, borderline 40-point games because he's tearing it up on the ground so much. And nothing's really changed on the Bears, like personnel-wise or roster-wise, other than improvements that suggest that's gone and not possible ever again. But we are a far cry from that right now. And I'm at a point where as long as I get a halfway viable option on waivers or in a trade or something, I am going to sit Justin Fields against the Denver Broncos, even though the Broncos just allowed 70 points to the Miami Dolphins.
Do you have a backup on your roster right now?
Currently, the backup on my roster is Matthew Stafford, who I picked up shortly before game time, just for a dart throw. I dropped Sean Tucker because he's done nothing. But Matt Stafford didn't do anything to inspire confidence either. Stafford was almost I was hoping he would do something last night, so maybe I could start him this week, but he's almost a longer-term play because I think he's looked good throwing the ball, that when Cooper Kupp comes back, he'll be able to actually rack up some touchdowns and be a little better. Last night was a tougher showing than the first 2 weeks, but
last night was tough, but honestly, I think I'd start Matthew Stafford over Justin Fields because at least we've seen Stafford be solid. We have seen nothing.
I know.
Los Angeles at Indianapolis this week. So, a decent matchup there. But even against Denver, they're playing Denver this week in the toilet bowl. And and I still wouldn't start. Despite the Broncos, let's just put it this way. This is how bad Justin Fields and the Bears are right now. The Broncos gave up a 70 spot last week. And I am starting them this week in fantasy because they're playing the Bears. I don't care how bad they've been. They are playing the Bears, and I would start any of the Bears' opponents. And also noted that I played the Jaguars defense against the Texans, who got me -1 points. Broncos defense got 1. I would have been it would have been a net positive had I started the team that gave up a literal fucking 70 burger.
Yeah, wow. Well, that is true. Wait. Oh, because of the Marvin
It was
Mims
a return touchdown.
Yeah,
Yes, that's the only thing. It would have been horrendous without it, but
I think also once you reach a certain threshold, it's like getting to 70 is no different than allowing like 48. It's just all rude at that point.
But that's the thing is, like, that's how bad the Bears are right now. And, hey, maybe this could be the week Justin Fields needs, but I'd start Matthew Stafford over him right now just because we have seen nothing from Justin Fields. And this isn't a case of, like, we always talk about how, you want to be early on a guy rather than late. I would be fine being late with Justin Fields. I would be fine having him sit on my bench and pop off. And
that's the thing.
And it goes from there. I would much rather do that than keep him in my starting lineup and just being disappointed after disappointed after disappointed.
No, I think that's the right play right now, and like that's the key. Don't be mad at yourself if you bench Justin Fields and he goes off this week. Like that, you want that because you want to see that he has the potential, but you don't want him to hurt you if it doesn't happen. Like there's a point where you need to be okay with it because otherwise, that's how you talk yourself into starting bad players every week. That's how you talk yourself into starting Kyle Pitts every single week last year. Like at a certain point, you need to sit him down and be like, give me a big performance on the bench first, and then I'll insert you back in the lineup. I don't know that I'll go with Stafford over Justin Fields just because the touchdowns have not been there for Stafford either. I mean, he's got 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions here on the season. Granted, 2 of those picks were last week against the 49ers, and then the Bengals I felt like played really inspired defense last night. And he's got the Indianapolis Colts, who have maybe the worst corners in the league this upcoming week. I just don't know that. It's like, look, even as bad as Justin Fields has been, I think he and Stafford have averaged roughly the same amount of points so far. Literally the same, 13.3 points per game. So I think I would take Fields against the Broncos if I don't end up getting a somewhat decent option. But I am exploring basically all options first. I'm not confident in Justin Fields anymore, and I think really nobody should be. You got to wait and hope that this plays out and turns into something that, somewhat resembles what we saw last season. And I don't know. It's bad vibes in Chicago. It is not good. Pat, let's just keep the negativity train rolling. Derrick Henry. Talk about a big name in fantasy that was a complete dud this week. I mean, we're talking 2 points in PPR. This was 0 catches, 11 carries for 20 yards. Derrick Henry, this is now 2 games where he essentially has been game scripted out in favor of Tyjae Spears.
Snapped 2 out of 3 weeks.
It's bad, and I don't think like Tyjae Spears is not coming for the crown or the lead back role, but this is not a situation where Derrick Henry is game script independent. Like he's going to be affected by the Titans being bad.
Exactly, and you can't have an elite running back be phased out for any reason.
No.
You cannot do it. And that's where you took Henry. You took Henry in the early first round, in the first half of the first round, in at least non-PPR leagues. PPR leagues maybe a little later, but still, you took Derrick Henry to be your workhorse, to be your hero running back. And to get phased out for whatever reason is not good. And granted, he was really good last week when the game script favored him, but this team is playing very uninspired football. DeAndre Hopkins has looked pretty good. We weren't high on him, but he's been solid. But just really uninspired football. And it's funny because I was looking to trade for Derrick Henry last week, and I was just like, this guy's, the expectation's going to be too high. The return's going to be too high. He's out of my reach. Well, thank fucking God that I didn't, because I want to say this isn't going to keep happening, but it's like we've already seen it happen twice.
It could.
We've already seen it happen twice, and Spears basically plays all the passing down situations. The only catches Henry gets are really on when plays break down. It's you're definitely panicking. We talk about overreactions, but I feel like this is the point in the season where we've got at least a decent enough sample size where if it's that strong in one direction, you can kind of lean into it. And that's where we're at with Derrick Henry. And I also noticed something. My whole thing on this is no pants, Pat. I've been wearing pants this whole time.
Oh my God.
So maybe that's why we're taking my pants off live on
This is a milestone episode. This is a milestone episode. Pat's actually wearing pants. Wow.
I wore them one other time. I was going to issue an apology, but I forgot about that too. So we're good. We're back.
Apology.
We're back.
We're canceling Pat for wearing pants. But yeah, Derrick Henry's a guy that like I was weary of coming into the year, but also knew that, the sheer volume should make him worthy of at least a late first or early second round pick. That has not really been the case. I mean, the point totals in PPR leagues have been 11 point, or sorry, that's actually a non-PPR league that I'm looking at right now. But the point totals have not been what you are looking for so far, and I don't know how much it's going to get better because that Titans O-line is bad. That Titans team is bad. This is probably going to keep happening here and there. And yeah, he's as capable of any running back as popping off for 150 and 2 touchdowns, but those days seem a little bit in the distance right now. Watch him just rip up the Bengals this week. Just absolutely destroy them. But yeah, as a Henry owner, I mean, there's not much you can do. It's like if you were a Jamar Chase owner before this week, you just kind of have to lower expectations and hope for the best because you're not benching him. People probably aren't going to. I mean, maybe somebody would buy high. You don't want to sell low on Derrick Henry. So unless somebody's going to give you reasonable value, you just have to hold him and hope that he recaptures the form that we've seen him have in prior years. But yeah, so far Derrick Henry, not what you want to see from your first or probably early second round pick. Pat, in that same division with the Tennessee Titans are the Houston Texans, who we need to start giving some credit because they have been, I won't say a fantasy goldmine, but certainly a lot more fantasy relevant and friendly players than we thought they'd have.
Oh, certainly exceeded expectations. Real life football and fantasy football. They're at the very least you can say they're out there fighting.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, C.J. Stroud became the third player in NFL history to have 900 yards through his first 3 professional games, joining Cam Newton and Justin Herbert. So C.J. Stroud so far through 3 games looks to be pretty legit. Looks like, Ohio State might actually have a good quarterback for once. I hate people that make that argument, but he may be, he could go down as the best Ohio State quarterback as long as you're not counting Burrow, which you shouldn't. And he's supporting 2 fantasy relevant receivers now. I mean, it remains to be seen kind of how that distribution is going to go going forward because, Tank Dell kind of came onto the scene in a little way last week, and then this week was kind of the coming out party for him, whereas Nico Collins had a down week after the first 2 weeks. He had down week in week 3 after he was the wide receiver 7 through the first 2 weeks. So how will these guys coexist? Will it just be them bouncing back and forth, or will the target share be consolidated enough that these two can both, thrive on a regular basis if Stroud's going to keep putting up these 300 or so yard passing games every week? I think the ideal situation is that Robert Woods kind of just goes off to pasture, not literally, but he just, doesn't get the targets that we saw him getting.
Basically what's happened to Dalton Schultz instantly, which we were not
exactly.
expecting. A late tight end 1, early tight end 2 going out there, and non-existent.
Nothing. Absolute nothing burger. So if Robert Woods can join Dalton Schultz and just be sort of NPCs on the Texans, I don't see any reason that Tank Dell and Nico Collins can't coexist. Completely different archetypes of receiver. Tank Dell is like 5'8", Nico Collins is like 6'4". So this is, you've got one guy who's a go up and get it, probably red zone threat. Then you've got another guy like Tank who is just the big play machine and shifty in the open field. So I think you can comfortably start either of these guys in your flex each week. Right now, Pat, I own both of these guys. I'm going with Tank Dell as it stands because I just think I've seen a little more from him, and the target share has been going in his favor. And I think C.J. Stroud just has such a strong connection with him. I also think there's a chance that Tank Dell is just like the better athlete and better player than Nico. Again, they're such different receivers that it's hard to compare, but I think Tank Dell may be the one that's more likely to be an exceptional football player, and that's what you're looking for. And when he's got the target share to match, you're starting him.
Yep. Tank Dell is my second victory lap of the season. Early I said the big thing that stood out to me, which is why I liked him, was because one of the first things C.J. Stroud did as a Houston Texan was tell them to draft Tank Dell. So he specifically wanted him, and they trusted in Stroud enough. They said, okay, this guy's our future. We'll get him Tank Dell. And I agree with just everything you said. Even the last 2 weeks when Collins has looked really good, the target share, the route participation wasn't great, or it didn't necessarily match the production. Not to say the production was a fluke, but to see Dell be as involved as he is, without, being as young as he is really encouraging. I would start Tank Dell this week. And I would start Tank Dell. I like Tank Dell better rest of the season. And his name is apparently Nathaniel. I don't know. Like
Yes.
on a lot of official platforms, he's N Dell. I'm like, who the hell is this?
Yeah,
And I look
Nathaniel
Dell. But no, let's go with Tank. But no, he's been great.
What are the odds, Pat, that we would have two Tanks in the same division in the AFC South? Tank Bigsby.
And one of them absolutely fucking stinks. And the other is
Tank Bigsby's first name, for those curious, Cartavius. We've got Tank Dell is Nathaniel, and Tank Bigsby is Cartavius.
he should go by Cart Bigsby.
Cart Big. I like that actually. I don't think that's bad. That's a lot more.
Until you've proven me otherwise, Tank, you're now Cart.
You just have to give him a punishment of a weirder name until he starts producing. I think that's fair. All right, let's move on here, Pat. The Los Angeles Chargers, offensively, they've been cooking pretty good here. Justin Herbert has looked good. Keenan Allen has been a freak to this point.
Fucking time machine.
I mean, it has been wild. So the first three games, look, week 1, 14.2 points, whatever, yada, yada. Last week, 31.5, and this week, 45.2 PPR points. The guy is just turning the clock back. And Pat, this doesn't surprise me from a sense of, I expected the Chargers to take a step forward offensively with Kellen Moore, with Justin Herbert being healthy now. People forget that he had a rib injury early on last year that just kind of messed him up for a while. And so you've got those two factors going in. Keenan Allen, as long as he's healthy, I mean, these are astronomical numbers, but they don't necessarily shock me. What you're hoping for with Keenan Allen is just that he stays healthy. I mean, look, 45 points isn't going to happen every week, but could he get upwards of 20 in PPR leagues almost every week? Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me at all.
Absolutely.
You just need him to stay healthy, which is not something that Mike Williams was able to do, unfortunately.
Did you see the play it happened on too?
I actually didn't. I was like, I only saw it briefly.
Not to injury shame the guy, but it was just kind of unnecessary. He kind of jumped up into the defenders to kind of get the extra yard. And obviously you've got the adrenaline going. He just didn't need to do that, and it's so unfortunate because this guy is so fucking talented out of Clemson. When we see him, he's one of the better deep threats in the whole league. He's got the size, he's got the athleticism, he's got everything. The man just cannot stay healthy, and it is absolutely brutal.
Yeah, it is tough. This will not be a situation where, like in the past, Mike Williams misses a chunk of games and then comes back, whatever. Mike Williams is done for the season. So the question becomes, what does this mean for the Chargers? Well, it means that Keenan Allen is even more so going to be the guy. It means Gerald Everett probably gets bumped up a tick here as well. But the question becomes Josh Palmer, Quentin Johnston, right? Both guys who are going to see.
Seems like this is the discussion with Josh Palmer, and I bit hard last year and started him through a couple of duds, and then finally benched him, and then that was the week he popped the fuck off.
Yeah, I think Josh Palmer is a guy that people are touting right now because he's the one that's expected to step into the volume role immediately. I mean, Quentin Johnston is still seemingly being brought along a little slower. But, Pat, I'll be honest, I don't give a shit about Josh Palmer. I don't. I'm going after Quentin Johnston. If he's available on waiver wires, he's the guy I want. Am I starting him this week? No. But I don't see Josh Palmer being a guy that, Mike Williams is done for the year. That's how we have to approach this. This is not a stopgap. This is not get the guy that's going to get 8 targets, for a couple weeks and then the starter comes back. You should be playing the long game here. Who is the guy that you want for the rest of the season? The guy that you should want is the more talented, the more fits the archetype of Mike Williams, Quentin Johnston. Even if he doesn't do it this week, he's going to be the guy that in 2 weeks you wish you had. But guess what? They're both getting picked up this week in your league, most likely.
And they should be.
Yeah,
they both should be.
In reaction to the Mike Williams injury. I think you're going to be kicking yourself if you sit there and choose Josh Palmer over Quentin Johnston. He may outproduce Johnston this week. He may outproduce Johnston next week, maybe even the week after. But I think Johnston is going to be. He's just the better talent. I think in a high flying offense like this, I want the better talent.
But the thing is, though, is that specifically if you have Mike Williams and you need a guy that you can plug into your lineup this week, it's Josh Palmer. But if
I would agree with that.
Say you're just you don't have Mike Williams and you're just trying to take a flyer on a guy with upside, it's Quentin Johnston. But I think it could be a while until we really see him. Compared to all these other rookies, Zay Flowers, even guys like Tank Dell, he's probably being incorporated the least. Out of a lot of these
Definitely.
Even a guy like Josh Downs in Indy is really starting to get involved earlier than than Johnson. But the one thing about Johnson that he's got somewhat of a similar mold to Williams. Like, he can be that kind of big down the field guy, a big body. But I like this for Gerald Everett a lot. You know, we've seen it in the past when Keenan Allen and Mike Williams get hurt. Gerald Everett is a strong volume player. But the only thing is that Williams wasn't the volume guy. Like, if Keenan Allen was the one that got hurt, then I'd be talking more about Gerald Everett and Josh Palmer as the pick up the volume guys.
Agreed.
But still, where tight ends have still been fucking horrible. Gerald Everett is definitely on the streaming radar, especially with bye weeks coming up. But I'm not overly enthused about any of these three options. Like, I've made my rounds and made my waiver claims. I have not targeted any of these guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let me be clear, because you're definitely right about if you're a Williams owner, you know, you'd rather plug in Palmer. I'm assuming that a Mike Williams owner has at least one serviceable receiver on their bench that they would rather start than Josh Palmer. If you straight up have no wide receiver depth and you need the guy that's going to do something this week and has okay volume, yes, Josh Palmer is your guy. But I was thinking of it from both the perspective of if you're a Williams owner, you have a little depth, and if you're a non-Williams owner, which one of these guys is the better bet long term? I just think it's Quentin Johnston. Josh Palmer just doesn't do a lot for me. I think Johnston is the upside play, and if you're looking at waivers, generally that's kind of the play that you want. I think Palmer will get surpassed at some point. Again, we just don't know exactly when that will be.
Palmer's the archetype of the guy that, like, you want to be good. Like, it seems like they come along every year or so, but he probably just isn't that great. That's probably just the way it is, and he's going to have an opportunity. Like last year when Mike Williams and Keenan Allen were out, it was later in the year. He's got, 15 weeks to show that he's a viable NFL player. But like I said, if I've got the bench space, Quentin Johnston's available, sure, throw the dart, but I'm not overly enthused about anybody in this offense outside of course, Keenan Allen and friend of the Off the Bench podcast, Austin Eckler. But I think we also need to mention that Josh Kelly, come on.
Oh, man. It's been bad for Josh Kelly, man. I mean, it's like a total of like 6 or 7 PPR points over the last 2 weeks if you add them together. It's been rough for Josh Kelly.
He's like the new Alexander Madison, but probably even a little worse. Like, at least Madison would produce when Dalvin Cook would be out. Like, Kelly's the guy that we want to. And again, we've seen it a few times, but this has been brutal. And, like, I was in a dynasty, and I got offered Treylon Burks for him. I'm like, no way. And, I mean, granted, right now it doesn't matter much, but it's a dynasty league. Like, you never know. But I'm just like, no way, man. I struck gold. I used my top waiver claim on him. I'm keeping him. Even if he starts this week in that league, granted, I have a pretty good team. I'm not starting Josh Kelly. I'm not doing it again.
Yeah, I mean, and it was one thing last week when he had just come off the game against the Titans, right? Really good run defense. They played the Vikings this week in what ended up being a relative shootout. I mean, it basically was right at the projected point total from Vegas, like 52. So, but, a lot of points were scored, and the guy just did nothing. I mean, he plays the Raiders this week, so if you want to throw him out there.
What's that supposed to mean?
It might be an okay opportunity, but I don't know how you feel good about it unless you are really, really desperate at the running back position.
Oh, we're a fantasy podcast, so obviously we don't have any mention of the Josh McDaniels thing. Maybe I'll save my Josh Daniels soliloquy / tirade for the end here. So let's stick to the agenda, but I'll get to it.
Make a note. Josh McDaniels is a moron. We do know this. Pat. Two guys who were honestly kind of a little similar in their primes, I feel like. Keenan Allen, who we just talked about, and this guy, Adam Thielen, both short yardage terrors who struggled to stay healthy at times. Adam Thielen may have found the fountain of youth here in Carolina. So week 1 did nothing, was on nobody's radar, but he was battling an ankle injury coming into that game. We just assumed he didn't produce because he stunk, honestly. I don't think anybody really gave any mind to that ankle injury. We were just like, he's off our radar. He's going to stay off of our radar. Well, newsflash, the last 2 weeks, he's gone for 31.5 and 20.4 PPR points. So apparently he's got our attention, or he should have our attention at least. How are you approaching Adam Thielen, Pat? Is this a guy you'd go and replace Mike Williams with?
Absolutely. I like him 10 times more than any of the Charger guys. You look at it from this perspective is that his kind of role, at least before Justin Jefferson, was a volume guy. He's kind of could be a safety blanket. I mean, especially in like the red zone. Like 2 years ago, he caught like 13 touchdowns. He had some absurd amount of touchdowns. But I think what is being so overlooked in this situation is that young quarterbacks need that kind of, security blanket receiver. And I guess after week 1, we all just kind of assumed it was Hayden Hurst, who has completely disappeared after that. And it's probably because Adam Thielen was banged up. But it is clear now that Thielen is Bryce Young's go-to guy. And granted, the guy had a pretty bad year last year, but he's been a really solid player for a while. And again, this team could be losing a lot of volume out there for him. And if he is Bryce Young's guy, sure. I mean, I'm not breaking the bank on him if you have Fab or even early waiver claim maybe. But if you're needy at wide receiver, this is a guy that has shown that he is going to produce under Bryce Young at least. And but again, just not the best offense, so you might not be relying heavily on him, but certainly someone to throw a stab at.
Yeah, so I do want to mention that this past week was not Bryce Young, it was Dalton. But yes, he did emerge with Bryce Young last week, so he was the primary target last week. This week was with Dalton, and Dalton threw for an ungodly 361 yards and 2 touchdowns. Where did that come from? We didn't see that
Dalton
with the
had to
Saints
throw
ever.
to his fellow geriatric out there, too. They gotta stick together.
Fellow geriatric white guy, they can go have their calendar house breakfast together. But no, Adam Thielen appears to be the primary target regardless of which quarterback is out there, which is good to see. And I think, the 14 targets this week are a little bit disproportionate because you're not going to find the Panthers throwing the ball 58 times every week like they did this past week with Dalton. But regardless, again, who's under center? Adam Thielen is probably the receiver you want to own in this receiver room. I mean, Jonathan Mingo is an interesting guy because as a young guy who's playing a good amount, that upside is there for him. But Thielen is a guy that is just the most experienced and the biggest volume guy. For PPR leagues, I mean, it's Adam Thielen. And if you want to stash a guy like Mingo, sure, I think there's probably better stashes out there that you could make. But if you need a starter right now, I don't think Adam Thielen's a bad one. And I think if you are, if you did suffer a Mike Williams injury or an injury to any other receiver or flex player, Adam Thielen's not a guy you're going to be upset plugging into your lineup. They also have the Minnesota Vikings this week. So very favorable matchup for Adam Thielen, who
revenge game.
Yeah, revenge game for him. Found the fountain of youth. So didn't think we'd be talking. Pat, I really wouldn't have been shocked if we went all season not uttering this guy's name.
Without mentioning the guy, without
but
mentioning the guy's name. And, but I was going to say, basically, outside of Miles Sanders, he is the Carolina Panther that you should be owning in fantasy football.
Miles Sanders, gross. Okay, so we talked about Jonathan Mingo there for a second, Pat. This is just an overarching theme I want to touch on, and I don't know if you feel this way. It feels like through 3 weeks, rookies are a big deal this year. Like, it seems like there are a lot of immediate impact or impending immediate impact rookies right now at various positions because I realized this, Pat, when Devon Achane went off for the Dolphins, and I explored a potential trade with our pal Brett in our league for Devon Achane. And so I was
regular listener of the Off the Bench podcast.
I was picturing who I would be giving away and what my lineup would look like. There was a world where I would have been starting like 4 or 5 rookies, and I was like,
wild.
I cannot in good conscience do that, even if they all look really good individually. But I was like, think about it this way. I need a quarterback, right? I would love if I could get C.J. Stroud on waivers. Probably a pipe dream because I'm like 9th in the waiver order, whatever. But let's say I did, right? I got C.J. Stroud. Then I have Devon Achane as one of my starting running backs. I'm already starting Sam Laporta. I am already starting Tank Dell right now this week. Jordan Addison's on my bench, but I could feasibly start him. I mean, I'm not going to start him over a guy like Calvin Ridley, but like I could have 4 to 5 rookies in my starting lineup that I feel good about individually. And so it just made me realize there are so many rookies already that are making a big impact. And, we talked about Achane, Stroud, Tank Dell, Quentin Johnson, obviously, but there are a group of rookies as well that they're slowly breaking out and that you need to get on that train before it kind of leaves the station. So
get your victory lap. Go ahead. Get yours.
Yeah, I'm going to take my victory lap. The only reason he's even on here is because he's still available in a decent chunk of leagues. That will change. He won't be available in any after this week if they know what they're doing, if they're active leagues.
Is he available in any of mine?
I don't know.
Go ahead, do the victory lap. I'm checking to see if Sam Laporta is available.
Yeah. So, yes, it is Sam Laporta. I'm back to my late round tight end ways, as you guys know, and it has worked out. Again, for all the talk of rookie tight ends can't do shit and they never end up doing anything, I felt good about Sam Laporta, but I'll be honest, even I didn't see it going this well. This past week, 8 catches, 84 yards, and a touchdown. Here's the key, though, because I watched Sam Laporta in the first game of the year against the Chiefs on Thursday Night Football. Obviously, I would hope the eyes of all of America and every football fan was on that game. It was the first one. Sam Laporta he was lining up out wide. I loved the usage. I loved the percentage of snaps that he played, but the targets were not there. The things were not schemed up for him. So I was like, okay, he'll be a guy that I could probably start every week because the tight end landscape is so bad, but he's not going to be a guy that does a ton for me on a week-to-week basis. Maybe a spike week here or there. Who knows? But here's the key stat. In the first 2 weeks of the season, Sam Laporta only accounted for 10% of Jared Goff's first read targets. So he was only, I don't know how to say that another way. 10% of Jared Goff's first read targets in weeks 1 and 2. In week 3, 31.8%. Led all tight ends in the league, Jared Goff's first read targets. So things are being schemed up for Sam Laporta. Sam Laporta is the guy that Jared Goff wants pre-snap, and then he sees him and he's throwing to him. That is what you want in a tight end. He has,
and especially
all
when
the
there's
makings.
Such little to look for in tight ends. Like, you don't even need
Yeah.
much to jump onto a tight end, but you've got something as significant as that. God.
Yeah, it's like you are looking for just scraps, anything that's going to get you points. And Sam Laporta, if this usage, again, this is like spiked sort of usage. We're not going to see 32% first read targets every single week. But the fact that that's within his realm of possibilities, I don't know how Sam Laporta is not ranked as a top 5 tight end right now going forward. Like, the usage is just crazy. There's not a ton of weapons. All the reasons you would have liked Sam Laporta coming into the year, they're all culminating. It's only Amon-Ra St. Brown as a competing target. I think the key here, Pat, is Jahmyr Gibbs is just not doing a lot still. So that's a big one. We thought Jahmyr Gibbs could essentially operate as the wide receiver 2 based on what we were hearing in camp, and that has not materialized. So Sam Laporta has become the wide receiver 2.
Camp is such a troll.
And may remain that way even when Jameson Williams comes back, which again is not a threat for another 4 weeks or so here. So Sam Laporta he's here. If he's available in your league, go get him. Obviously,
Even if you have a good tight end, go get him.
Yeah, even if you have a good tight end, definitely. He's a guy that it doesn't matter. If you need a tight end, especially though, blow literally all the fab if that's how your waivers work, because this is a guy that is going to be good all season. He's here. And he's here to stay. So sorry to all the rookie tight end naysayers. It's Laporta time.
And that's the big thing is that outside of St. Brown, Josh Reynolds has been okay, but Laporta's a better player. He's a younger player, and we've seen it with T.J. Hawkinson that there is room for a high volume tight end role in Detroit, and Laporta looks great. You don't have. I'll just quickly mention Luke Musgrave here because I feel like he's kind of Sam Laporta light. He's been more of like the routes look good, the targets look good, the production's been solid. He's not quite plug in your lineup, but I think he's a much better stash. Like he's one of the better stashes out there for rookies here.
Yeah, absolutely. If you can get Laporta, go get him. But I'm loving life with my Sam Laporta over here, and I have Pat Freiermuth on the bench now. Don't ask how that happened. So
One of Pat's pals.
Yeah,
he's letting the squad down. He's the other 3 pals are looking good. Pat is not looking good.
He was okay this past week. We'll see if it
Got
continues.
a touchdown, yes he did.
But back to the rookies here that are emerging. Sam Laporta's kind of already emerged. And Jordan Addison, look, I drafted a lot of rookies this year, so I have him too. But Jordan Addison is a guy that is also continuing to emerge here, and he's not going to be a guy that's available on your waivers, obviously. But he is one that is it's a gradual breakout, and if you can buy somewhat low-ish on him before he becomes, not what Justin Jefferson was when he broke out as the number 2/1 to Adam Thielen his rookie year, but he's going to break out more than he already has. So here's the snap percentages for Jordan Addison through the first 3 weeks. Week 1 was 56%, week 2 was 69%, and week 3 was 71%. The target percentage by week 1 was 15%, week 2 it actually dipped to 12%, and week 3, 17%. So we have now had a season high in both snaps and target percentage for Jordan Addison, and it's only going to get better. So if you can get this guy, look, this is one of the pass happiest offenses in the NFL. Cam Akers blows too, and he's the reinforcement. So Jordan Addison's going to be a guy this year, and if you can get him before he goes truly nuclear, do so. That's all I have to say.
You cut out at least for me, and after just a pause, the first thing I hear is Cam Akers blows.
What I said before that was Alexander Madison blows. So if that got cut off,
so
that's
everybody
fine,
blows.
Everybody already knows that. But yeah, if you can get Jordan Addison, do it. Okay.
Agreed. Like my friend sent me a trade proposal. A lot of fluff in this. Like they're swapping a defense, but it was like Tua, a defense in one of Addison or Tutu Atwell for Josh Allen, Zach Charbonnet, and Cowboys D. I said if you can get Addison in there, you've got to do that. Mm-hmm. And then basically just saying that like that Tutu's targets are going to be cut when Cooper Kupp comes back, if Cooper Kupp comes back. But Addison's only going to get better. Like we've seen some production in terms of thanks to long touchdowns, but the snap rate, the things like that, quite where you want them to be, but those are only going to get better, like we talked about last week. Yeah, you've got, if you can get it on Jordan Addison in a trade like that, do it.
Yeah, he is a somewhat of a buy low. I mean, the owner that has him may know that this breakout is coming, but honestly, a lot of them probably don't. That's why you got to be the smarter person and go after him. Pat, let's do some more low key. They're just kind of slowly breaking out, and these are the ones that you can probably actually get for cheap. I think Jordan Addison might be a tough get in a lot of leagues, but these guys maybe not as much, and at a position that you really desperately need, or at least most people do, because it is just a shallow position. Here are a couple of running backs. We got Zach Charbonnet, who you actually just mentioned. So he went 9 carries for 46 yards in week 3. His snap percentage also slowly climbing. Week 1, 22%. Week 2, 37%. Week 3, 43%. Again, this is what happens with rookies, even the good ones. Like, they just slowly get more involved as their rookie season goes along. We'll see what the cap ends up being, because obviously there's another running back in this backfield. But I found this really interesting when I was doing research on this. I didn't see this quote before. So Pete Carroll says that Ken Walker waived to keep Charbonnet on the field on the last drive, hoping that he would score the touchdown. So this is a very unselfish backfield. This is but more importantly, a bigger thing to note is that like Charbonnet is going to be very, very involved, even to the point where Kenneth Walker wants him involved. Kenneth Walker wants him to score touchdowns. Like this is going to become a two-headed backfield sooner rather than later, and there is at least a chance that Zach Charbonnet is the better running back. We don't know that yet. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, but there's a chance, and there's decent rushing volume to go around. So if you can get Charbonnet before, he either takes the job or is producing more consistently, do so, because, again, another guy where you just got to follow the trend. I mean, the graph is just going up. Oh, I guess my camera's reversed. The graph is just going up, right? So just get him while you can. Yeah, we're not tanking. We're not no downward stonks. He's a guy that is another buy low, and I think rookie-wise, you're going to hear a lot more from Zach Charbonnet here in the next few weeks.
Yeah, agreed with everything you said, but I'm also not necessarily panicking on Ken Walker in the same situation.
Fair.
Even we saw last year, a little touchdown dependent. Like a lot of his big games last year were when he scored touchdowns or multiple touchdowns. And obviously that's what he's doing. He's ripping off touchdowns this year. And obviously it's not going to be completely sustainable, but I think it's going to be somewhat sustainable. Like I think we're looking at a similar situation to like Jamal Williams last year, where they're going to be in positions to score. And Seattle, is there a team that, well, maybe besides Arthur Smith, is there someone who loves to run the football more than Pete Carroll? I don't think so.
Probably not.
And it's still going to be a high-volume offense. Even with Charbonnet involved, I still think Ken Walker is a guy you want. Like, don't panic, but I agree that Charbonnet is going to get more and more involved.
Yeah, he's just going to keep getting more involved, and again, running backs are just tough to come by these days. So if you can get one with a decent role without breaking the bank, you got to do it. Another guy that falls into that category, on a much less exciting team, Roschon Johnson. So, look, the Bears are a disaster. I know you probably don't want to own nor start any Bears right now. Like, none of them have been consistent contributors at all. But Roschon Johnson, he's another guy whose snaps have been rising. We've got 39% week 1, 42% week 2, 45% week 3, and Khalil Herbert has just not been all that interesting. Not been all that impressive.
Herbert coming into it too.
Yeah, so it's been unfortunate for Khalil Herbert so far. Again, I'm sure the state of the offense is not helping, but even with the state of the offense, Roschon Johnson has looked better in the touches that he's gotten lately. So I think a Roschon takeover of this backfield is probably inevitable. I don't know if it happens, next week. It could. Regardless, you probably have to sit him until the Bears' offense gets better, but it's still a guy that you want to invest in.
That's the thing. I think it's more imminent than Charbonnet's takeover, that's for sure, just because obviously Seattle's got a better offense and a better running back than the Bears and Khalil Herbert. But Yeah, I think it's inevitable, too. I think it's pretty imminent that it's going to be Roschon Johnson's. We saw it quickly, the fact that Deontay Foreman has not been playing now. That shows that they believe in this guy. And if Herbert continues to look bad, and they continue to look bad, they're going to need to see what they've got out of this rookie. But like you said, you're not even DJ Moore. I'm not starting a Bear this week.
No,
I'm not,
I don't
I'm
know
not
how you
starting
feel good
a Bear
about it
until you can see it. But if that offense does try to figure it out, kind of like it did last year, I think Roschon Johnson is a great guy to pick up. I wouldn't be surprised if he's already been picked up in a ton of leagues because of that.
Yeah, definitely. And Pat, one final one here. It's a guy that I mentioned earlier. Look, I don't know if this is going to turn into anything. It's kind of just I desperately need some sort of running back with some sort of upside, and it's a guy that I'm keeping my eye on and who I have on my roster despite the fact that he has not made his NFL debut yet. Mentioned him before, it is Zach Evans of the Los Angeles Rams. So here's my thinking. Not a lot of great evidence here, but Kyron Williams... Zero evidence. But Pat, Kyron Williams cannot keep getting this workload. He can't.
Incredible.
He's literally getting 100% of the snaps, at least he did this past week, in addition to being a kick returner. And I'm not even saying that, injury is inevitable here. I'm saying that no team operates like this all season, where you give one running back every single touch. It's not going to keep happening. Somebody's going to get worked in. Will it be Evans? I don't know. But if it is, I think he has a much better chance of being something than Ronnie Rivers or whoever the fuck they tried to work
Royce Freeman.
Royce Freeman, thank you.
And those two guys are the reason why Kyron Williams is getting every touch.
Yeah, because why are you going to give those guys any touches? Like, they're not worth it.
That was my first thought, was when Cam Akers was inactive in our league, I looked for Zach Evans, only to see that he was once again a healthy inactive. And I'm just like, in a league where, not a big bench, it wasn't worth it at that time. But I think you're absolutely right. We've seen it. Everyone thought that was what was going to happen with Kyron Williams last year coming off of IR from the high ankle sprain, and it just didn't. But I agree, but it's concerning that he's not even active, that they trust.
It is.
Granted, Ronnie Rivers has been there a little bit. He obviously knows the thing. He's a bit of a special teamer, but, you're really telling me you're going to elevate Royce Freeman on a weekly basis to not play at all instead of at least give Zach Evans some kind of touches? That's the only concerning thing is, what aren't they seeing right now in him to even make him active, let alone give him valuable snaps? But if you've got a big bench, especially like a dynasty league, probably owned in dynasty leagues, but I think it's a good stash. But I feel like he's one of those guys that you stash, you need the bench space, you drop him, and then it bites you in the ass hard at the end of the year. That's
the thing, and it's like, again, somebody's got to get worked in here. I just don't see this workload continuing for Kyron. And why am I betting on Zach Evans? If you've never heard of Zach Evans ever, here's the main info you should know about him. 8.74 relative athletic score. Now, what the hell is that? Basically, it's the metric that tells us guys like Breece Hall are above average elite athletes. He scored a 9.96 out of 10 on the relative athletic score. And it's the same one that tells us that Alexander Mattison is just kind of okay. He scored a 6.85. Now, this is not a foolproof metric by any stretch of the imagination. Trent Richardson scored a 9.62 on this score. But it's one that tells us that, Zach Evans, who scored an 8.74, at least has the potential to be an above average NFL player if certain things break right. So I'm stashing him on the bench. This is your best bet for finding the next Devon Achane before it happens. You need to find guys that could potentially step into a volume role and are above average football players. Pat, you're 100% right concerning he hasn't been active to this point, because maybe he does stink. Again, athleticism is not everything.
He'd at least be active over fringe NFL players at this point.
Right. Again, athleticism's not everything. Trent Richardson stunk after his rookie year.
Well, he had a high ceiling, though.
Exactly. He had a high ceiling. So,
this makes sense.
I don't know how much you can stomach having a guy on your bench every week who's inactive. I understand that, but I'm doing it because, again, I don't have another running back, and I'm looking for somebody that has some modicum of upside, because there's no reason for me to roster Ronnie Rivers. There's no reason for me to roster Gary Brightwell. I don't care. I'm going to take the guy that maybe he'll be active one week.
If something happens to Kyron Williams, say this week, we don't knock on wood, we don't talk about injuries, they are going outside of the organization.
Sure.
There is no way they turn it over to Ronnie Rivers, because they did that last year where, Or no, where like I forgot who he thought it was going to be, but then it ended up being Ronnie Rivers. It was something disgusting. Like there were a couple really disgusting weeks in that backfield. Obviously, hopefully Williams stays healthy. None of this is a problem, but you know, yeah, exactly. Like the fact that they wouldn't turn to Rivers or Freeman in that situation means they're probably not going to turn to them at all. So Evans is, again, for a guy that has not been active, we're talking quite a lot about this, but if you're looking for that next HN, then yeah, why the fuck not?
Yeah, I know it's not something that everybody can or will want to do based on their rosters. Like, he hasn't played a snap. I understand, but I'm taking the stab because I think he could be a thing. At the very least, he's a guy whose name you should keep in the back of your head because Kyren Williams, you know, this was a bad week for him. I think he's a good player. He's out. I can't tell. Okay. I think I may have cut out there for a second.
You cut out bad. I wasn't sure if you cut out for everyone, but you did cut out for me there. Okay. But yeah, no, one thing I did hear you say Williams didn't have a great week. A lot of it, he was getting a ton of targets, but Stafford was just missing him by a mile in the open field. Right. Just huge misses. So like you can't really put that on him, but the involvement is S-tier involvement. There's no one that is more involved. The funny thing, the two most involved players right now are Kyren Williams and Zach Moss. Like, what timeline are we living in? The thing I will say about Zach Moss, completely unrelated, I own Jonathan Taylor. I'm ready. He is going to, if they are giving Zach Moss all that, can you imagine Jonathan Taylor in that situation? If you could go get Jonathan Taylor, it's probably too late now, but strap in, folks. I am completely strapped on and in for Jonathan Taylor. There's your clip. FBS Scotty.
That is quite a clip. Okay, that's
do
my
this
rant.
Now, though.
Go ahead. That's my rant on random rookies.
Taking the glasses off.
Oh boy.
Watching the Sunday night football game on that last drive, I had like a friend text me saying like, you know, what is McDaniels doing? And I said, what do you mean? And they're like, what? And I said that because I was completely unfazed. Because this is a stupid man that does stupid things on a regular basis and has now shown for the second time, I guess third time technically, because he flamed out as the offensive coordinator in St. Louis, that's dating it, that he has no business being a head coach or anywhere outside of Foxborough, Massachusetts. If you wanted to kick the field goal there and cut it to 3, Daniel Carlson made a field goal, and they took it off the board. If you were going to kick a field goal, take the field goal and give yourself an extra 90 seconds. That's a lot, especially when you've got just the worst fucking quarterback imaginable for the 2-minute drill. My God. Yeah. The second that they took that field goal off the board and said they needed to say, we are going for a touchdown. We are going to tie this game or we are going to lose. And if they did that, at least they would have went out trying. But to not only waste 90 seconds of your life, to just do the same thing and cut a game to 5, and then you end up giving yourself, 20 seconds at your own 15-yard line with a terrible quarterback. What the hell are you thinking? And it just makes it look like you're throwing in the towel, you're waving the white flag like, it's not analytics. It's not anything. It's just being fucking stupid. And this guy is stupid. I saw a tweet from like a Swiftie account that was like the most bare bones football explanation ever. Like, you get 4 tries for a first down. You could kick a field goal for 3 points, or you could score a touchdown with his worth 6. And somebody said this would have been useful information to Josh McDaniels at the 2-minute drill at the end of that game. The fact that they gave this man another year, well, it's because they're cheap. They're cash broke. Mm-hmm. They don't have the money to fire him. Hopefully they will soon, and then that guy is gone. What an absolute embarrassment to restart. Side note here, folks, we have a personal connection to Rich Bisaccia, who was the Raiders' interim head coach. Our buddy Cal is his nephew. So when he got promoted, I was all in. Mm-hmm. Uncle Rich, yes. And, when they didn't bring him back, I was like, I understand this and this. They had a coach who had the locker room, who had to make the playoffs after their fucking egg-headed head coach. What did he call Gene Upshaw? I don't even not Gene Upshaw. Jeez, DeMaurice Smith. I don't even remember what he called him. Get that clown out of there. He carried them to the playoffs. He had the locker room. Everyone wanted him. And to replace that guy for just a straight up bona fide clown is embarrassing, and it is why they are one of the biggest losers in the NFL. Perpetual losers who will never do anything being run the way they are right now. And you know what? If Jimmy G's hurt, bring on Brian Hoyer. But you're not going to get Caleb Williams because there's no way the Bears can win a fucking game. Maybe Marvin Harrison Smith, Drake May. Get Luke May for all you know. He'll probably be better than what they've got right now. But
Luke, wait a minute. Did you just reference the North Carolina stubby, that Luke May?
yeah, it's his brother, Drake May.
Oh my God, I
Yeah.
didn't know that. That makes so much more sense now.
Sure, maybe I don't think
you're,
I'm
you're
wrong.
probably
Hang
right.
on.
I just haven't heard the name Luke May basically since he made that shot. Jesus.
Is they related to? Yes, they are.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, the
So
more
that's
you
why
know.
I brought. But moral of the story is that I was so unfazed when it happened because I'm like, yeah, stupid guy doing stupid things. But the more and more I've unpacked it and the more I've talked to people about it, just the more mad I'm going to get. And they are a terrible team with a terrible head coach. And now they're going to have to tear it down. Again, they tore it down when they got Gruden. And now they tore it down when they got McDaniels. And they're going to have to fucking tear it down again. And that is why they will never, ever. I'm putting the curse of no pants Pat on the Las Vegas Raiders. And it's a damn fucking shame because they had at least something decent going. They are a joke.
Cursing your own team is some next level shit. I respect it. Pat, the quote I couldn't get over was McDaniels got asked why he kicked the field goal. He said we needed multiple possessions. Down 8 points. You needed multiple possessions. To win the game, yeah, true. But I think, given the time constraints, going for the tie was probably your best bet and then going to OT. But look, Josh, what do I know? I'm not a coach in the NFL, but you shouldn't be either. I would love to live in the timeline where he didn't leave New England and like we didn't have that debacle of Matt Patricia as the OC and then you guys weren't subjected to him as the head coach because I think we'd both be a lot better off. I mean, the Patriots are back in an okay spot now, but it would have been nice to not have to deal with
Josh
that year.
McDaniels has made it clear he's a good offensive coordinator in New England under Bill Belichick. He's made it perfectly clear. Anywhere else, the dude is fucking useless. Absolutely useless.
I would agree. Absolutely useless. Speaking of the Patriots, by the way, they're going to beat the Cowboys this week. So, okay, we will finish
dear.
up. We will finish up with our viewer questions.
We just got a letter. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. Wonder who it's from.
For some reason, that's the only sound I remember to play on the show. We only have one other one. I'll add more
The
eventually.
news,
and then
but we
maybe
didn't
I'll
really have
remember.
much news, did we?
Yeah, I guess we didn't really have news. It was just kind of running down everything. I don't know. Talking about every game is news. The games are all new every week. Whatever. Okay, viewer questions. First question: the season is still early. Who do you think is a sleeper team that will come alive? I thought this was a good question because you get through 3 weeks and you feel like you have a pretty chunky sample size here, but this is not like the teams that are at the top of their divisions are not all going to stay there. I guess what team that's either 1-2 or 0-3 is going to turn it around? Pat, I see you seem to have an idea there since you're rubbing your hands
He's
like
cooking.
a fly.
He's
Yeah,
cooking.
What's he cooking over there?
He's cooking the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh my God! No, you're fucking not. You're kidding.
Not to say that they are like any kind of huge sleeper. They are not an 0-3 team. They are so much better than an 0-3 team. And the fact that they outcharged the Chargers was fucking hilarious, first of all. But
Yeah.
out of all the teams underachieving right now, maybe the Chargers are the other one that you could put in this category too. Out of these teams that is at least going to be in the conversation for to be a playoff team this year. Kirk Cousins has been pretty good. It's just the problem is their defense is terrible, and just some boneheaded decisions late in that game. Like laughable. Like you just laugh thinking about it. But more so to rile you up, and just that I can't think of another answer. Let's go with Captain Kirk, my boy.
I made a joke that like everybody talked, especially me, about the regression because like they didn't deserve to be a 13-4 team last year and the point differential and all that. Like
True.
their actual record should have been something like 10-7. I joke that they're just going to go 4-13 this year and even it all out. They're going to go 500 for the 2 years combined. So I mean, they're 0-3.
Maybe you're right.
They're 0-3. They're pacing that right now. I don't think the Vikings are going to do jack shit this year personally. Obviously, they're not going to go winless or anything like that. They'll probably end up around, if I had to guess, I'd say 7, maybe 8 wins. But I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this year. I think the Justin Jefferson situation is also going to bear monitoring. I don't know what's going to happen with him. Obviously, you assume, at the very least, franchise tags will be in play after this year. But Justin Jefferson did not get extended before the season, and he seems visibly pissed off pretty much every week. And understandably so. I mean, even though it's not the offense, it's just the team is just not very good overall. The defense has been terrible and letting them down.
Been terrible for years. Even with Mike Zimmer, who was this defensive guru. The defense will always be bad in Minnesota, it seems.
Yeah, Justin Jefferson strikes me as a guy who really, really wants to win. I mean, he's a very competitive guy. I don't see him sticking around on a Minnesota team if they're going to be, quite this bad consistently. I don't know what's going on in his head. And again, the way for him to get out of Minnesota is definitely not clear because he will just get tagged if nothing else. But it's going to be it bears monitoring. I will say that much if the Vikings don't turn it around. Pat, I guess the team that I will say. I'm going to go with the Patriots. I mean, if I'm going for 1-2 or 0-3, I'm looking
shocked.
down. I mean, yeah, shocked, I know. But I'm looking at okay, who's 1-2 or 0-3? The Bengals are 1-2. They're probably a decent pick here as well. But again, the Burrow thing does concern me.
You've got reasons to really be apprehensive about that.
Yeah, and I guess, you know what, maybe if I looked at it closer, I would have gone with the Jags because I have not lost faith in them. They're also 1-2. I think these are two teams that will both be a lot more competitive than what their success through the first 3 weeks has been. But I'll go with the Patriots just because that defense has been good. We need to get a little healthier in the secondary, but mostly I've just been really impressed with Mac Jones. He looks very, very good. If his receivers could just make a couple more plays for him. I mean, he's just dealing I mentioned the Jags. He's dealing with Jags as his receivers, just a guy after just a guy. There is nobody really making plays for him. Pharaoh Brown made the biggest play for him this past week. Nice. Just ripped a 58-yard wide open touchdown.
Horrible broken down coverage.
I mean,
still,
you or I could have scored that touchdown, but regardless, it happened. I think the closest thing he has to an above-average weapon is Hunter Henry, but that doesn't really materialize until you get near the red zone or critical third downs. It's not somebody that's going to make an explosive play for you. So the fact that he's played as well as he has thus far, despite those things, I'm optimistic for the Patriots to have, if you were to pace out a 1-2 season, what does that mean you go? That means you go 6-11 or something like that. I think it's going to be a lot better than that. I think they'll be hovering around 9 or 10 wins, hopefully. But I'll go with them. I just think they've shown flashes, and they'll have better luck here in the coming weeks. Starting with this week, they're going to beat the Cowboys.
Biased but fair. Would have been far more fair than me saying the Raiders. So I'll give you that.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, I guess I like I said, I could have gone with the Jags, whose shirt I'm wearing. I believe they will bounce back as well. Final question is a player-specific question. Start which two of Kamara, Mostert, Brian Robinson, Madison, Barkley?
Make a trade, my boy.
Make a trade because you are, unless you're in a 6 or 8 team league, you are more loaded at running back than quite literally anybody I've seen in normal size leagues.
This should not be happening.
That is loaded. So Kamara will be coming off the suspension. Barkley may or may not play. I think it's pretty easy if Barkley plays. You're going Barkley and Mostert.
Agreed.
If Barkley doesn't play, it becomes more interesting because Brian Robinson and Madison have been sporadically productive just because of their roles. Brian Robinson had a tough week this week because they got blown the fuck out by the Bills.
Yep.
But in week 4, let me refresh my memory on what the matchups are for these guys. Oh, the Commanders have the Eagles. No, don't start Brian Robinson.
I would probably say Kamara anyway, just in general.
I think, yeah. I mean, Kamara's not a guy that you're worried about, I don't think, being eased back in off the suspension. They are hurting in the backfield. They need guys. So I think he's going to take on a pretty big role right away. Who do the Saints play this week? The Saints play
Packers. Oh, who do they play this coming week? Sorry.
Yeah. Why can't I see them? Am I blind? Saints are on a bye. No, I'm kidding. They play the Buccaneers. So whatever sort of matchup. And then Madison, I'm good. I'm good on starting
we
Madison
talked about
options.
Kendra Miller last week as his hot waiver wire pickup, and I said it's going to be gross, and they're going to use a man named Tony Jones, and they did, and they both did not do much. So Kamara is established. He's familiar with the offense. He is shown to be a very good player. But again, if Saquon does play, you have to start Saquon Barkley.
Yeah,
I just
regardless
don't
of
think,
the
I just
injury.
personally, I have no info, whatever. I'm no doctor. I would be surprised if he does play this week, but
Yeah, apparently, he wasn't ruled out, for the Thursday nighter until later than we expected. So who knows if that was a sign? But yeah, if he plays, it's him and Mostert. If he doesn't, it is Mostert and Kamara. That'll do it for this week of Off the Bench. I think this podcast, save for the audio issues in the beginning, was a lot smoother. I did cut out at some point, but I don't think we had our little robotic issues. I
at
have
least
to listen
on my
back,
end,
but-
only 2 cutouts on my
Yeah,
end
well,
the whole time.
there's a little notification that comes up that's basically like, "Hey, dickhead, your Wi-Fi's blows right now." I'm just like, "Oh, okay, cool." So I'll just keep talking and pretend I don't see this.
No way you actually just cut out right now. There's no fucking way.
I see that. Okay.
Oh, that's incredible.
That's-
that was perfect.
That is
Holy
my
shit.
signal to end the podcast. So
Yup.
thank you guys for tuning
That's our
in.
night.
For Pat Gustafson, I'm Brandon Carney. We'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.